Hey folks, Dave from Nerdarchy, for Nerds by Nerds. Today I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nathan Nerdarch.
You won't survive the Roper Wrangler. We're going to start this video by thanking our sponsor, D&D Beyond. If you want to have everything at the tip of your fingertips that's official content, that's unearthed arcana from Wizards of the Coast, D&D Beyond is your one-stop go-to spot. You can find a link in the description to go check it out, as well as the monsters we're about to talk about. You can find them over there on D&D Beyond. Some of them even for free. So the Roper Wrangler, we had this idea. We wanted to combine an encounter with two monsters that are going to be able to work well together and are kind of connected loosely. We're going to go over some ideas for the encounter for you dungeon masters out there. And then at the end, for you players that are playing 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, we're going to give some tips and tricks for countering these monsters.
And one of the things is they're both creatures that can be found in the Underdark, and they like caves and things. And they're both ugly enough that they should both be in caves and never see the light of day.
Yeah, pretty much. So we're going to use formorians, ropers, and piercers. Put them together in your Dungeons & Dragons game to put your players on the ropes. So with that, we have formorians on page 136 in our monster manual from 5e D&D, as well as 161 we have ropers. Nate's going to be looking at the monsters on D&D Beyond on his digital device as we kind of talk about the encounter. So the encounter morphed quite a bit from like this original idea I had. I wanted to have a monster using other monsters as kind of like weapons. I was inspired by the Ogre Hucker.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we just don't have enough Ogre Huckers in the game. So we were like, well, what can we use? Well, first off, the monster probably has to be huge. So I was thinking like some kind of giant.
Well, yeah, otherwise it can't carry around whatever you're trying to put on it.
And then we're like, well, what would be like a good idea for another monster to work with it? And what are we trying to accomplish, right? So we started like developing some story elements. So we have this formorian that goes out hunting for people that bring back to their lair, right? Yeah. It may be a formorian colony. It might not be. It might be a different Underdark colony. You know, it may not even be his establishment that he wants to take these prisoners back to, these slaves back to. But there's a gambling hall, and in this gambling hall, there's something called the Gauntlet, right?
The Piercer Gauntlet.
Yeah, the Piercer Gauntlet, or the Piercer Pacer. I've heard that one thrown around.
I like
as
the
well.
alliteration there.
So the idea, it's a foot race, right? All you have to do is make it from one end to the other. Not a big deal at all.
Alive.
Yeah, so, you know, basically this corridor with like probably like in like a Coliseum style seating. You know, so you have all the spectators and they bet on the racers, like who's going to actually be able to make it to the other side of this corridor as piercers are dropping down.
Now, when I thought of it, I was like, well, I like the idea of the giants being truly monstrously huge. And so I always thought about them like standing around just a table that has wall edges that they look over. But that's way too big for what formorians really are in the Monsters Manual in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. So I think more of a, you know, bench seats around an area where people can't climb out of is a good setup.
Plus too, what if it's not just giants and formorians? What if it's more of a neutral city in the Underdark where people gamble and congregate? So it would give you more options. I mean, both would work, obviously. It just depends on, you know, what you're trying to set up for the adventure. You
could have beholders in the seats. You could have all different kinds
of
things.
Mind flayers, whatever.
Mind flayers, dragons.
Yeah, mind flayers cheating or beholders cheating in the seats to try and make it harder for the other ones. But one of the problems we decided, the solution for it is, as the piercers kind of age out, they become ropers, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you do with them? They're somewhat intelligent, and so they could technically be trained.
You train them to wrangle.
You train them to wrangle. That's it. So our formorian hunter goes out looking for prey. You know, either has a wagon or maybe like an iron box on his back. You know, or the iron box could be on the wagon. It doesn't really matter.
Like a one-way trap lid.
Yeah, pretty much.
Things in.
But hanging off his back, we kind of joked about the roper beer hat, as funny as that would be. But, you know, hanging off his back is a roper looking over his shoulder. And the crazy thing about ropers is their reach.
Oh, yeah. Their reach is insane. It's 50 feet.
You know, so this thing is like flailing its tentacles, grabbing you, grabbing your buddies, and then reeling them in. Instead of eating them like they normally would do, one or two of them it's going to throw in the box, and then it gets to eat the others.
Yeah.
Instead of putting the roper on the formorian's back, the other thing you could do is have it attached to like a club or something,
Or a big stick.
or a big stick.
I like the big, like, giant, formorian size spike that has a roper on the end, and you just kind of stick it into the crowd, and it's like a gathering honey, or what, ants with sticky honey or something like that. And I'm like, yes.
In my mind, I see a fishing pole. Yeah, I see
the
a
strangest
fishing pole.
lore ever.
And and in his offhand, or maybe his main hand, depending on how you look at it, he's got a whip. So, and what is that whip for? Is it attacking adventures? No. It is for making sure the roper releases its prey into the box where it's supposed to. Yeah. No, rope, you can't eat him. Put him in the box. We need him to bring back.
Highly trained wranglers will be able to just crack it, and then the roper will plop him in.
Yeah, so, so it adds an extra complication. Maybe the burst or to break out of the iron box is a little bit high, DC 15 to 20-ish. So in theory, if roper gets you and a couple of your friends in there, they're going to be taken out of the fight. It's going to make it much more tougher to win this challenge. The rest of the adventure party, they're going to have to try and get their friends out. Or, you could actually have the roper grab some NPCs, throw them in the box, and then the players have to, then track down the roper and this formorian back to their lair, and then they see what they're using them for and try and free them from their grasp.
That's a good distinction, because using the NPCs as the lure or the hook for the adventure is, I think, superior to trapping some of the players' characters, and then they're like, well, I'm in an iron box trying to get out for the rest of the section.
Well, although there are some ways to get out,
Yeah, that's true.
You're completely stuck, but what it will do is affect the action economy of the party if they have to use it as actions escapes. One is like picking the lock or bursting out, or there's certain spells that the players can use to get out for sure.
Oh yeah, any type of, that's one of the things for discussing what.
Well, yeah, when we get into the discussion, what players can do. But so there's definitely things, and also you can build up to this. Like maybe there's a mining town or colony that your players are kind of staying at or show up at, and they're having this problem where the miners are going missing, and then the players investigate and they find the scene where it happened, but maybe a couple of miners get killed, and clearly they've been like mauled or eaten by something.
Giant shark bite size out of them.
Yeah, pretty much. But each time one or two of them gets carried off, and it's like, what's going on? So you could start there with like this investigation, and then they have to travel beneath the earth and into the Underdark to start discovering what monsters are attacking these miners. And maybe they make you do this encounter, and then they kind of find out, and they defeat it, but then they still have to figure out, they took some alive. Maybe they took them for a reason. Maybe they're still alive. So do they keep going? So this could be an encounter, or this could be a whole adventure, depending on where you wanted to go with it.
And you could have it as straightforward as they just are captured to be eaten, and that's just like food storage, to all the way up to the finding out that there's this underground, literally underground, in the Underdark gambling hall where this crazy piercer pace is going on.
Yeah, and you actually see that this formorian or other formorians or other monsters are actually farming piercers and raising ropers.
So we mentioned we wanted to have a section for the player characters and what they can do strategy-wise to not befallen to the roper wrangler.
Absolutely. So a big part of it is like staying out of the reach of the roper and not getting wrangled, right? And that's really hard because a roper has a lot of reach.
Yeah, with a 50-foot radius, that's just a lot of controlling.
And they also get a lot of actions too, right? Every round, the roper gets 4 attacks with its tentacles, trying to get you. It gets the reel, and then it also gets a bite. So that's six actions essentially it can take. So if it grabs up to 4 people, it can pull them 25 feet in that one round. Boom, they're way into it. So now if they even if they get free and they try and run away, there's going to be an attack of opportunity to try and grapple them again.
Yes, and in the corridors and not wide open spaces of the Underdark, it's going to be a problem trying to get around this or past its range and to safety.
So a big thing with this encounter is staying at least 50 feet away from these creatures in order to not to be within that threat range. If you to really be safe, 65 and more, 61 or more actually, it keeps you out of the range of that evil eye, because that's the other problem. The Formorian is going to be able to work its curse on you, which if you fail, it's going to be even harder to escape the Roper.
And also, if we have the adjusted one where it's on the giant pike or stick or club, as you said, that's going to be an even additional amount of reach, because it's going to be the 50 foot on top of the reach of the Formorian. So it gets pretty crazy.
Yeah, so it sticks them out there another 15 feet. So, from the Formorian, the Roper is going to threaten up to 65 feet. So you need to be a little ways away. So ranged attacks are definitely going to be a way to go. But what if you've gotten past that point? What if things have gotten a little out of hand?
Gotten a little too physical. At that point, you're going to have the advantage is going to be when you have decent shove attacks, because you can shove people out of the Roper's clutches. You can also, if you're a raging barbarian or something like that, you're going to have advantage on strength stuff. So that's going to really help you escape.
High athletics checks, high acrobatics checks.
That's true. And also, you can also help other people out of that with the help action.
So those are like what we call getting physical in order to help stay away from the Roper. But there's some other means too, some magical means perhaps.
If you have spells that either enhance your ability so that it makes that check easier, or if you have spells that allow you to just jump space, so that the far step for the elves, or you have the misty step or teleportation. Those are all good ways of getting out of there and just poof, right out of the grasp.
And also any kind of forced movement. Forced movement is a lot trickier though, because for that to really work, you have to be on the edge of the Roper's reach, and you have to push them away from the Roper in order to break the grab.
Yeah, so most likely you're already in the range, and you might be the next target for the tendrils.
Or, if you have a way to target the individual tentacles, they're kind of easy to break. It's the only problem is they grow back the next round. So maybe like a searing ray spell where you get multiple rays, where you can just like cut a bunch of them away.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, and then they have a chance to run away.
Yeah. Otherwise, if they don't get that chance to run away out of the range of it, it can just pop more tendrils out and attack. And that's another thing to note is if you just keep attacking the tendrils, it's not going to damage the Roper. I don't know why, but its tendrils don't count as it technically as far as hit points are concerned.
It just keeps regrowing.
Yeah, it just keeps. It's got like regenerative tendrils.
So and both of these monsters combined, you're going to have a whole pile of hit points to contend with. As we said, you don't want to attack the tentacles. If you can, you want to attack the Roper itself. You're going to have to just beat down the Formorian. They're really tough. And if you can attack either of these from beyond their range, that is your best chances. Because if you get close and personal with these guys, they are very tough. So the question is, what do you guys think? Would you use this encounter in your game? Have you used an encounter like this similar? Have you faced off against Ropers and Formorians? We got a place where you can tell us all about it, and that is down in the comments below. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
And don't forget to check out our sponsor, D&D Beyond, for all your Dungeons & Dragons needs.
Till next time,
Stay
stay
nerdy.
nerdy.